Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, everyone. There's a new feature on Zoom this morning that you may get a voice message saying that this is being recorded and you get the option to continue.
Yeah, I just heard that. So I was like, that's new.
It is new. It caught many services that meet an hour before we do, sent out the word that Zoom had done an update without advising us. So
Yeah.
nothing to worry. We record these to have a record. But it's a nice reminder that if you would prefer to not have your face on a recording of this service, just stop your video and you can still enjoy the service and be with us. But I hope that you'll stay in the room and be present with us today. The names, the other thing that's important to know is that when we record, your names are not displayed. Oh. Only the image. So you can see names while we're meeting, but the recording does not show names. So there is an element of some confidentiality there, and we're not streaming out beyond members of the fellowship. So it's pretty much just us. That may change when we go to hybrid services, but we're still figuring that out. So it's good to be with you, and I think that it is 11:02, and I'll bring up the screen to begin our service together. If there are any visitors here today, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Kent McCusick, the minister serving this fellowship, and it's good to have you all with us this morning. The title of the theme for the month of May is Story, and our service today is called The Call of Our Faith. It's good to be with you today.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Sarah Carlson, and I serve on your fellowship board of directors. I want to thank you all for being here today and extend a special welcome to any visitors with us today. Please stay on after the service for our virtual coffee hour, where you may introduce yourself if you are comfortable and join in conversation. Today, we will be extending our small group breakouts by an additional 5 minutes for a total of 15 based on the feedback we received from the congregational survey. At their most recent board meeting, the board voted unanimously to extend the closure of the fellowship building through June or until the regathering task force makes different recommendations. We continue to have periodic check-ins and stay tuned to the guidance of the UUA and our community health experts. This shift will allow us to get through the roof replacement project, which is taking up space in the parking area, as well as allow us time for setting up a hybrid attendance system. It will also give the board enough time to more fully analyze the congregational survey results and prioritize the many elements of a reopening plan. We acknowledge that the CDC guidance is shifting and the need to consider procedures for opening safely and protecting our most vulnerable who cannot receive vaccinations. And while it's hard to remain apart for so long, we remain committed to providing a safe environment for all who call our fellowship home. So, on behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here, we invite you into an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Each week, we begin our service with the ringing of our chime 3 times. Once to wake the chime, once to open our minds, and once to open our hearts. After which, Sam will lead us in singing Let Us Be Drawn In, and our chalice will be lit to the words of David Bradeen.
In the world of the driven, let us be drawn in. Let your love be a given, let us be drawn in. To imagine, to dream, to create, to redeem, for the sake of the living, let us be drawn in.
We tender this flame, opening the book, turning to a page yet to be written, opening a story yet to be told. May we fill this fresh page wisely. May we write a new story into being. May we together inscribe this page with hope.
In the world of the driven, let us be drawn in. Let your love be a given, let us be drawn in. To imagine, to dream, to create, to redeem, for the sake of the living, let us be drawn in.
With the opening music this morning, I invite you into a time of reflection. With their kind permission, we're able to hear and see Redemption Song, which is a cover of a Bob Marley song by the Canna Mason family. The centering thought of the original piece by Marley has this phrase: emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Won't you help to sing this song of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs. This is Redemption Song. Let's take a deep breath together, breathing in and breathing out. It's a beautiful morning. The offertory recipient for May is the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, a statewide nonprofit conservation organization that works with private landowners and public agencies to protect and restore Iowa's land, water, and wildlife. Since its founding in 1979, supporters and staff have protected more than 180,000 acres of Iowa's natural resources. Thank you for your generous giving as you're offering this morning to protect the future of Iowa for future generations. At the end of the service, please consider going onto our UUF Ames website, click on the Giving tab, and we will be glad to receive your gift. Thank you for your generosity. The time for all ages this morning is a story called What Do You Do with a Problem?
And now, what do you do with a problem? Written by Kobe Yamada. Illustrated by Mae Bessem. I don't know how it happened, but one day I had a problem. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it. I really didn't like having a problem, but it was there. Why is it here? What does it want? What do you do with a problem? I thought. I wanted to make it go away. I shooed it. I scowled at it. I tried ignoring it, but nothing worked. I started to worry about my problem. What if it swallows me up? What if my problem sneaks up and gets me? What if it takes away all of my things? I worried a lot. I worried about what would happen. I worried about what could happen. I worried about this and I worried about that. And the more I worried, the bigger my problem became. I wished it would just disappear. I tried everything I could to hide from it. I even found ways to disguise myself. But it still found me. And the more I avoided my problem, the more I saw it everywhere. I thought about it all the time. I didn't feel good at all. I couldn't take it anymore. This has to stop, I declared. Maybe I was making my problem bigger and scarier than it actually was. After all, my problem hadn't really swallowed me up or attacked me. I realized that I had to face it. So even though I didn't want to, even though I was really afraid, I got ready and I tackled my problem. When I got face to face with it, I discovered something. My problem wasn't what I thought it was. I discovered it had something beautiful inside. My problem held an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to learn and to grow, to be brave, to do something. It showed me that it was important to look closely because some opportunities only come once. So now I see problems differently. I'm not afraid of them anymore because I know their secret. Every problem has an opportunity for something good. You just have to look for it.
Let's sing together, This Little Light. Each week, we take time in our service to pause and invite you in the community to share milestones in your lives, significant things that are bringing you joy or challenge or gratitude. As I open the room to sharing, we'll just be mindful that there's a time lag in Zoom, and we'll stay present and hear each other until our milestones are all shared. This is our time of sharing. Please remember to introduce yourself and let us know when you are finished. This is Kent, and I just want to share my appreciation for Barb Evenson and the beautiful interlude music that she's provided us to use in our services every week. Thank you, Barb. We appreciate your music and look forward to the time that we can hear your harp and your piano in person again. I'm finished.
Serve Claus. I guess my milestone is that I moved out of healthcare and back into my apartment this week or last Thursday.
This is Marcia Brink. I'm down in the Kansas City area. I've been here since last August. And this coming week is the last week of remote schooling with my grandson. I've been doing that this school year. He's 7 years old, and I think it aged me about 15 years. And I'm coming home sometime, back to Ames sometime this summer. And leaving him is going to be way harder than it was to move down here for 9 months. It's going to be really tough, but I'm looking forward to being home.
Hello, everyone. This is Dennis and Cindy Wooleen, and we have been living here in Boone for almost a year. And just yesterday, I invited son Ben and the family, Tegan and Riordan and Morella, to come and visit our house here in Boone. And this is the first time that they've been able to come over, keeping in mind that they want to stay safe in the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have finally reached that time when they can come and visit us. That's all.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lori Allen. And during the pandemic, my wonderful and beautiful daughter-in-law, Heather Allen, passed away. She was here in Ames and at the USDA and the university. And because of, we were just entering into COVID when she passed, we were not able to have a memorial service for her. And so now one is planned for Saturday, July 31st at Ryman Gardens with music and food and all of the wonderful things that Heather loved. So I'm very excited that we finally get to acknowledge her wonderful life. Thank you, I'm done.
This is Chris White.
You're still muted, aren't you? No? Okay. Okay.
And this has been a week of milestones for us. First of all, we filed our taxes on Sunday, which was thrilling. Second, we got Jeff signed up for Social Security. We got the IPERS papers submitted for retirement, and we've signed up for health insurance and all of those things pending his retirement on June 24th. And then the next day, the 25th, I have an appointment at the neuro-ophthalmology clinic in Iowa City to see what's going on in my brain. So it was a week of accomplishments. Now all I have to do is gather up all the papers and figure out what are duplicates are going to be thrown away, and organize the beginning of all the onslaught of retirement paperwork. But we're pretty excited. So we're done.
If there are no other milestones, we'll return to the screens. For those milestones that have been spoken aloud, and for those that we carry ever so gently in our hearts, we remember that in this community, even when we are not together in person, one never needs to make this journey alone, and that each of you are loved. With that in mind, let's be together for a moment of silence. It is good to be together. Our friends in Concord, New Hampshire have made this special music available to us. It's their interpretation of the song Draw the Circle Wide by Gordon Light and Mark Miller.
Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No one stands alone, we'll stand side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one stands alone, standing side by side. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide.
This is Dan Haug. Our poem now is by Taj James, Follow the Ones Who Know the Way, Part 1. If your mind and eyes are open, heart beating, skin tingling in relationship, then bearing the heartbreak of these times can be much too much to bear. And yet, from the flames, floods, and foreclosed futures flies forth the future itself. Alive in the present, a continuation of the best we have ever been, leading now, leading today, for the sake of all of us. Brilliant, bold, and beautiful, healing, creating, and cooperating, young people, children, calling us back into our shared humanity, reminding us that we are a part of and responsible to everything that is, the entire web of life. Our ancestors' wildest hopes, filling the streets and halls of power with their passion and solutions. The courageous ancestors that our descendants will need now more than ever, reminding us of who we truly are and who we've always been. One, many, and one. Interconnected, interdependent, broken open, and whole. Nature itself, defending itself from the violence, domination, and extraction that the lie of separation and supremacy has wrought.
This morning, we'll be hearing from Paula Cole-Jones, who is the co-author of the proposed eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism, which is under consideration by congregations and will be addressed at the General Assembly this year. The text of the proposed principle goes like this. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and the other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Paula Cole-Jones worked with congregations in the Mid-Atlantic region of the UUA for over 15 years on the relationships between the seven principles and the deep multiculturalism of beloved community. She came to understand that a person can believe they're being a good UU and following the seven principles without thinking about or dealing with racism and other oppressions. Her realization of this disconnect inspired the development of the proposed eighth principle. Paula Cole-Jones, Bruce Pollock Johnson, and a group of anti-racist activists developed the proposed text that is inspiring UU congregations throughout the country to study, reflect, discuss, and consider adopting the eighth principle. We hope to have Paula Jones as our guest someday. As you can imagine, her schedule is very challenging. The recordings of her reflections on the eighth principle are from an interview with Satya Mamdani. Satya is a youth representative from Minneapolis on the Article 2 Study Commission, which Paula also serves on. The Article 2 Commission has been charged by the UUA board to study and propose changes to the principles, purposes, and sources of Unitarian Universalism. Their charge includes this guidance. The new principles and purposes should guide us in the transformation of ourselves, our communities, and our faith into active networks of collective care, restoration, and justice. The principles and purposes you will prepare should be a living document that challenges Unitarian Universalists to place liberation in all its dimensions of all at the center of our lives. They should be honest about our past, name what we are facing, and our aspirations and where we hope to be, not just for today, but looking out at the horizons. Our commitment to anti-racism, anti-oppression, and multiculturalism is love in action, and it should be centered in any revisions. It is a pleasure to bring Paula Cole Jones into our virtual sacred space this morning to help guide us in our study, discussion, reflection, and consideration with regard to the eighth principle. In this first segment, Paula addresses what are the intentions of the eighth principle.
Yes. So the eighth principle is a proposal that some congregations have actually adopted. So it's more than a proposal there, but it's a proposal for Unitarian Universalists to center our work around building inclusion into our spiritual life, into our congregational life, into our practices. And this is inclusion across the board in terms of Black, Indigenous, people of color, inclusion in terms of gender and age and ableism and sexual orientation, and just all of the ways that we are actively engaged in recognizing our full humanity for each of us. It's implied in the 7 principles, but our work is, we treat it more like social justice. And this is to move it from that social justice arena and make it central in terms of spiritual development and our wholeness as human beings. And that's what the eighth principle is intended to do.
This is Dan Haug. We continue Follow the Ones Who Know the Way by Taj James, Part 2. Generations are rising. Human beings that know in their bones that we all belong, fundamentally. That we all deserve love, care, and community, unquestionably. That our beauty and strength, that is the secret to humanity's thriving, and our collective future is to be found in exactly the places where we have been excluded, wounded, marginalized, and made invisible. In the beauty and complexity found beyond the binaries, unapologetically. Young people know that what is saving us, what is lifting us up and beyond amidst the collapse of the old stories and lies, is their creativity, their power, and their love. What is saving us is women's leadership and queering everything. What is saving us is Indigenous sovereignty, stewardship, and wisdom. What is saving us is Black genius and Black joy. And that the only thing that can save us is remembering how to create welcome and a place at the table for all travelers and newcomers and the gifts they bear. Humanity is in motion like never before, and generation transformation is rising.
Satya asked Paula to comment on how did this all get started?
Yes. So the eighth principle also, it comes out of years of work in Unitarian Universalism. I think each generation inherits the work that's been done before. So there's a certain amount of legacy, and each generation has a new starting point, right? I grew up Unitarian Universalist in a diverse congregation. And it wasn't until I started getting involved in leadership in 1998, 1999, and started going to General Assembly and visiting other congregations, and realized that the experience I had growing up was not really the norm, the average experience in terms of diversity. So I had a particular lens that was always activated, because I was asking myself, well, why not? You know, why not? And I got quite involved in our anti-racism work by 1999 on the national level. And I traveled a lot. You know, I worked with a lot of congregations, and that question was just always there in the back of my mind. Why not? Why is it that we struggle so much? We've got these wonderful principles. They truly are universal. They speak to a lot of people. And I just was constantly trying to figure out, well, why have we struggled so much around the work of, in particular, racial justice and inclusion? And so I had conversations with ministers, with lay people. I mean, this really was years of inquiry. But I remember the point at which it started to get resolved for me. And I was in a congregation, I was visiting for a weekend, a congregation that is recognized as one of our multicultural congregations. And I'm just experiencing it, right? And as an outsider, you know, we're there, and yet we still are in some observant mode. But I remember the moment, it was during the Sunday worship service, and I was putting my whole weekend together, and it's like, I got it. We can all embrace the 7 principles, and yet only go so far in terms of multiculturalism, because our principles rarely get tested around race, right? So the lack of naming it, right? That we can all assume, and certainly it's implied in every principle, but that's interpreted through each individual's experience. There's nothing that's central in our principles as a collective calling for us to make this part of our spiritual journey, right? The work of dismantling oppression, the work of dismantling racism is spiritual work. It's sacred work, because it's like, how do we acknowledge, recognize the spark of the divine in each person if oppression is allowed to stand? And one of the purposes of oppression is to create this social order, right? This valuing and devaluing. And that's our work to undo that. So we are building equity and inclusion into our thinking, into our services, into our relationships. And so the 8th principle is really the why around it, was because there is nothing in our purpose, in our principles, that call us to do that. It's implied. So if I individually am oriented that way, then everything that I do is done from a perspective of inclusion. But for people who are not oriented that way, the work of inclusion may be something else. Not to say it doesn't happen, but it doesn't mean that it's central. And this is work around identity, not just individual identity, but the identity of our congregation. So the eighth principle, it became apparent to me, Satya, that it was missing the language, our principles are missing the language that would hold us all, or would help us all to center this as part of our spiritual work. Let me say just another piece about that. So I highly value the principles, but also in my travel, and I have an environmental background, my professional work, before I got fully involved in Unitarian Universalism. For me, this inclusion resided in the seventh principle, for the respect for the interconnected web of life of which we all are a part. That said it all to me. And so it was painful to come to the realization over and over again that the seventh principle gets interpreted frequently, if not most often, as the environment. And for me, the interconnected web of life of which we all are part, that took care of the multicultural piece. But I go back to what I said about our principles are interpreted through individual lenses. That was my interpretation. I came to learn that that is not the way that other people interpret it. And so it was hard for me to see where our principles really called us to do that work. And the eighth principle then grows out of ongoing anti-racism work, where the community that we had been building in what was the Joseph Priestley district and now is the Central East region, we have been doing our work consistently for years, and the conversation then around the eighth principle really evolves from figuring out how do we interpret this work that we're doing for the average Unitarian Universalist.
This is Dan Haug. This is part 3 of Follow the Ones Who Know the Way by Taj James. The time has come for all of us to follow the children, for they know the way. To follow the young people, for they have the power. The way to liberation and the power to heal and create and transform. The time has come to ask and to listen. No, really to listen. What do you need? What do you dream? What is your superpower? And what can we do to support you to bring forth your gifts together? The time has come to tell them and show them, you are loved. We have got your back, and you don't have to do it alone. The future is yours, and the time has come. Follow the children, for they know the way.
Paula Cole Jones responds to the eighth principle as the possibility of a spiritual awakening.
I do want to share, Satya. I think that the eighth principle is going to lead to a bit of a spiritual awakening for Unitarian Universalism. I think it can revitalize the Unitarian Universalist movement because we're starting to unlock. I think about it in terms of there's a whole realm of where Unitarian Universalism can flourish, where we can flourish with Unitarian Universalist identity that we're just beginning to embrace as central to who we are. It's there, it has been central to who we are, but we haven't really fully embraced it as part of the spiritual journey. So it'll be interesting to see what we learn over the next couple of years. But this is going to be a very good year for the eighth principle.
Our closing song today is a new song recently released by Leah. This is called What Will You Make?
At the start of any given day, there is mystery available. There is a game waiting for an open heart to say yes. Here I am, I'll play. And if we're smart, we'll listen to the way, and all the misery that held us down, we'll let it fade. Let it be outshined by a simple spark of a life that's waiting to be made. It's waiting to be made. What will you make of this day? What will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? What will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide what you will make? At the start of any given day, there is history and poetry. There is a play, but you're not in the audience. You are the star. So get out there and say what you will make. What will you make of this day? What will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? What will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide just what you will make of this day? What will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? And what will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide what you will make?
Our closing words today are an intertextual dance between Leah and Gordon Light. What will you make of this day? May we draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. What will you keep? What will you change? Let this be our song, no one left alone. What will you see? What will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? May we draw the circle wide, draw the circle wide. Each week, we acknowledge that this is the 75th anniversary celebration of the UUFA. And I have two clippings this morning that I found in the library. One is from January 1950 and says that Vacation Church School for the intermediate class of children enrolled in the Sunday School of the Unitarian Fellowship of Ames will begin Tuesday and continue through July 13. Classes will meet each Tuesday and Thursday from 2 to 4 in the homes of members. Religious study will stress the ideal of tolerance for all religions and churches. There'll be group singing, craft work, and organized play. And there's also a picture of the YWCA and YMCA where the Sunday school used 3 rooms and the grown-ups used a big room and the lobby in 1951. We celebrate 75 years. Thank you for being with us this morning and for your generosity in offering funds to support our May recipient, the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, and other causes important to us as a fellowship, Black Lives Matter, and our partner church. If you enjoyed the words of Paula Cole-Jones this morning, that is part of a 45-minute interview. The link will be provided in the weekly email on Friday. And it's a great interview to listen to the whole thing if you'd like to learn more about the 8th Principle Project and the process that we're going through as a tradition. We'll go into breakout rooms now and see you back in 15 minutes.